Okay, that's right. Okay. MEH, sorry that you're being the person I keep asking about stuff, but can you hear us and can you see us okay?
Yes, thank you.
It's okay. Hmm.
Oh,
Hey, Joe.
So we're not. Testing, testing. And then let me turn this. And is it Mary? Is it Mary? What's the
Mary Edna.
Mary. Sorry, Mary. I keep saying MEH. I didn't want to keep
Mary
saying the
Edna,
initials. So Mary, can you speak one more time? Okay, let me switch the setting here. You're gonna get your full 15 minutes, don't
Oh,
worry.
you're fine.
This needs to be.
That's a question.
Mary, one more time.
No.
Oh, you're on mute,
Oh,
Mary.
wait, you're on mute now.
Can you go off mute? Speak one more time.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, great.
Hi there. I was literally just thinking about you earlier. I might have to tell Jada that I can't make it on Tuesday because Milk has their endorsement meeting on Tuesday night. So, yeah, sorry.
Go ahead. We don't have any buffers between interviews this time.
Okay.
So we wanted to give people a little more time. So let's go for it.
Yes. Also, Mary, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Awesome, let's get started. Well, hello, Joe. Thank you for coming today. As you know, my name is Joshua. I use him pronouns and I'm sort of on the practice team for the Remote Club. And just as a reminder, that this interview is being recorded and will be posted on our website for those who couldn't make it today. Thank you for participating in our endorsement process and submitting a questionnaire. This interview will last 10 minutes, and please try and keep your responses to a minute or less in order to maximize the number of questions that we can ask. And first is, can you please introduce yourself and the role you're running for and your pronouns?
Yeah, Joe Sangerardi, he, him. I'm running for District 9 of the BART Board of Directors, which includes just under half of San Francisco. So it is a fairly large district.
Awesome. Your next question is, why are we running and why now?
Yeah, for me, this is about trying to think about what the next 50 years of is going to look like. You know, I care a lot about climate change. I care a lot about transit equity and allowing people to opt into carbon light and carbon free lifestyles. And also BART is, since it opened in 1972, has become an instrumental, like a central part of the Bay Area economy. And right now, when we are trying to recover economically, BART is going to play a huge role in that. Unfortunately, with the proliferation of remote work, BART ridership is only at 43% of what it was pre-pandemic. And because of a very antiquated and bad funding model that was chosen by voters in like when Reagan was governor of California, it's 80% reliant on fares and parking fees from pre-pandemic times. So meaning at 42% of ridership, it's actually its two largest revenue streams have been decimated, and it's barreling toward a fiscal cliff in 2026. For me, the biggest ways to solve that is first of all, we have to earn back as many riders as we can as quickly as we can. So we need to make sure it's clean, safe, and reliable. And two, we're going to have to put together a ballot measure in 2026 and have the trust of voters to pass a ballot measure to fix an antiquated and inequitable funding structure so that we can provide reliable service in and out of economic expansions and contractions. For me, it's very much about climate change. Like we should treat a service like BART like we treat highways. They should be funded in a way that like people can just use it at any point whenever they need it, and they should always be able to rely on it. And that's kind of what I'm fighting for the future of BART. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome, thank you. The next question that we have is, you said that you'd maybe support a regional sales tax to fund transit. What specific aspect of a proposed sales tax would lead you to oppose it? Would you have voted for the sales tax authorized under SB 1031?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be the conversation of the next couple of years, what this ballot measure is actually going to look like. Sales taxes are often the most inequitable and regressive forms of taxes, which is why I struggle with that. I think that we should definitely be looking at like parcel taxes, property taxes, other sort of things like payroll taxes, to help subsidize BART and bring it in line with like the national average of public support for public transit. Just as an example, like the New York MTA is 8% reliant on fares. And as I said, BART is 80, right? And that's because voters who didn't want to get taxed in the 70s decided that they just wanted to make it a pay-to-play process for what should be ultimately a basic service that the region provides. So I would like to look at other options, but ultimately, we will not have control. The BART Board of Directors, the other transit agencies, boards around the Bay Area are not going to be the ones who ultimately pass the law that puts this to a ballot measure. So in a lot of ways, our hands are going to be a little bit tied on what ultimately gets passed by the legislature and what we can put out there. And I mean, my commitment is whatever version of 1031 comes on the ballot. I expect if I get elected in November to go out there and fight for whatever that ballot measure is for the next 2 years. So yeah, we'll see what creative, hopefully popular taxing structure we can create for voters to support.
Next question is, you stated that you supported Proposition I, the Access for All measure in November 22. What motivated your support and do you still support it?
You're gonna have to remind me exactly.
Yeah, this is the proposition that would have permanently allowed car access to Great Highway and JFK.
That I said that I supported it. I did not support that. Sorry, I must have.
It's a yes for I and J.
Oh, yeah, well I was for J, not for I, sorry.
Okay, clarify. That's why we have this
Oh,
question.
no, I appreciate it. Yeah, that is not, I am like all about like Great Highway should be a park, like car-free JFK, for sure, yeah.
Just for you and any other candidates who might be listening who are here, if you would like to resubmit a questionnaire, okay, we'll just upload it and then have that be revised. So
Yeah, that was like, oh my God.
Yeah,
I was like, that's,
you don't have to if you want to.
okay, yeah, I might do that.
Next question is, you stated no position on the repeals of both Costa-Hawkins and the Ellis Act. You also recently stated on Twitter that you're opposed to the statewide Justice for Renters Act to repeal Costa-Hawkins. Can you explain what your positions are and what you believe the negative impacts of rent control would be?
Yeah, it's not about the negative impacts of rent control. It's actually about bad actor cities. What we've seen when we've passed state laws to mandate the certain production or zoning for housing in municipalities is that bad faith acting municipalities who don't want to build affordable housing will use whatever tool they can find and whatever litigation they can pursue to avoid having to build their fair share of affordable housing. This puts a lot of power back into the hands of a lot of bad acting municipalities that are very like anti-housing. And the result is that they can actually pass laws that would make rent control so aggressive to intentionally avoid it penciling out so that no new affordable housing period gets built in these jurisdictions. This ballot measure, I mean, I know that Milk often looks at who funds these ballot measures. The guy who's the head of the AIDS Healthcare Foundation has done many things like this before. This is literally like, he tried to downzone half of LA because it would block his view from his office of like the Hollywood sign. Like this guy has done this 1,000 times, and that's why a lot of pro-housing organizations are in the process of coming out against this measure. I'm fully supportive of rent control. I think that there should be a running like after 25 or 30 years, all buildings should be able to become rent controlled. By that point, a lot of their mortgages are paid off, and you're not looking at the like capitalistic like developer trying to make money on the front end of it. It's already paid off, and their new technology means that newer buildings last a lot longer and better condition oftentimes. So I'm very supportive of rent control and inclusionary zoning. Yeah.
One question. And this is going to be maybe a little touchy, but
That's all right.
good.
Yeah.
I think our questionnaire can be a little black and white sometimes, especially in the yes/no questions.
Mhm.
So I want to give candidates a chance to like clarify a little bit or explain maybe a little bit more context.
Yeah.
I think you did mention the questionnaire that you have evicted a tenant.
Oh, no, I have not.
Oh,
It says that in your questionnaire.
Oh my God. Did
so
I,
let's make sure this is
I don't,
there.
yeah, I don't have a,
Let me, okay, let's go to the next question.
oh my God, I don't own something to be able to like, I've never had the tenant.
Let's go to that question. I'm just gonna double check.
Yeah.
I think it's the right one because.
Yeah.
Questions make
I'm,
sense,
well, so some of the questions were like, I had to like go back through a few times because some of them are like all affirmative, right? But then one of them is worded in the negative. So
Yeah,
then,
you're
and
right.
like, and I got caught up a couple times. So I
No.
tried to go back through and make sure that they were all right, but I might
It
have.
does reverse it, and that's right, that's good feedback. It
Yeah.
does reverse itself a little, but we should correct that.
Yeah.
But how to clarify, I'm gonna double check on the question.
God, I'm like between, yeah, between that and I'm like, those are not, yeah.
I can ask this question in the chat.
Okay.
Is, could you clarify your position on fare increases for BART? In the questionnaire, you responded with TBD.
Yeah, so right now, one of the only ways that BART can actually protect the level of service it has now, it's only funding processes that the BART board has control over are like parking fees and fares. So if in 2026, when the fiscal cliff hits and there's no money from the state, no money from the federal government, like the local counties haven't bailed it out and this hits, we're talking about like 30-minute headways during rush hour in downtown San Francisco, no service after 7 p.m. on weekdays, and no weekend service. BART only has control over 2 revenue sources, right? Like parking and fares. So the question is whether or not we shut down 3 of the 5 lines of BART so that we can have every 30-minute service like around the clock, or like what we have now, but just for 2 lines, or if we dramatically diminish the service we have. And a lot of working class people and poor folks are reliant on BART. And these are the people who are also going to be hurt the worst by the increase in fares, which is why I want to fix the fare structure for BART. But it is one of the only 2 things at BART's disposal to try to protect this level of service that people rely on right now. So do I want to increase fares? Absolutely not. But I'm also not going to lie to you and say that like I will vote against it when people are reliant to get to work. And right now the Bay Bridge is at the same traffic it was pre-pandemic. It's at capacity. People cannot get to work. And that's not an option for people who need to get to their jobs. Yeah.
We have 3 more minutes and we go on to questions.
Okay.
The next question you have is, when asking your qualifications for this office, you primarily wrote about the grassroots work that you did for the renovations of the Castro Theater. Were you volunteering or were you being paid for that work, and how does that relate to your part?
I only volunteered, and it continues to frustrate me that some people think that I was getting something else in the process. Like I assume all of you like do community activism, like I care about my neighborhood, and I volunteered a lot of time over several months, I mean, the better part of a year, to build a grassroots organization to fight for the future of the neighborhood and theater. You know, I would love to talk about the housing policy in my work. Housing and transit are intricately combined, right? I mean, housing and transit policy are the greatest indicator of someone's personal CO2 contributions is how dense of a neighborhood they live in. And people don't want to live in dense neighborhoods if they actually can't get around them, which is why transit is so important. So I think that working in and around housing policy, I came to housing policy in part because I care about diminishing like the displacement that's occurring in the Castro and also about climate change. And for me, BART has the upper potential of building 20 to 30,000 units on its land around the Bay Area. Today, the tax revenue BART makes from the land that it owns, that it develops, is very small. It's like 3% of its annual operating budget. But I envision a future in 20, 30, 40, 50 years where BART still owns this land that they've allowed to be developed so they can create tax revenue. And we've created a new revenue stream for the agency to, again, make it less reliant both on government support itself and fares for the people who rely on the service.
We got 1 minute.
You asked in the questionnaire, you say, we ask you what we do to end homelessness in your jurisdiction. Short and long term, you said not applicable, but you are concerned about displacement and stuff like that. I mean, do you really think as a public official that you don't have any influence or say in how we respond to homelessness crisis in them?
I think we absolutely do. But BART does not house people in stations and on trains. BART will never be a successful day shelter. That's not what it's built as. It's a transit agency. I do support projects that BART develops on its land for affordable housing use, and I would also support that for like homeless services and other things that can support those folks. I think, I've been supportive of the crisis intervention specialists that are alternative to police intervention for people who are suffering from like psychotic episodes on trains and stations. I do think there is a role for BART to play in and around homelessness and like the impacts people are suffering from as a result of their homelessness or lived experiences, but I don't think that, BART is not providing homeless services for people. And I think that the failure of local jurisdictions to provide adequate levels of services for homeless folks and housing and beds has actually resulted people who are suffering from homelessness to find the only kind of shelter they can, which is in stations and trains. And I think that's both unfair to them and it's unfair to the riders who rely on that service.
Surely BART as an institution has influence on, to a degree, of projects that get built and don't get built in the Bay Area.
Only on the land that it owns.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, yep. And BART has built a lot of like affordable housing on the land that it owns.
So would
I'm
you still
supportive of
say,
that.
with acknowledging that that question is not applicable to the BART?
I don't think that it's completely unapplicable. I think that there's a difference between affordable housing and permanent supportive housing.
Of course.
And I don't think that BART is in a position right now, especially with a $400 million fiscal cliff that could incapacitate its ability to run basic services, to be talking about building permanent supportive housing and paying for that.
That's for me. We should be having longer, that's more questions.
It's all right, yeah.
But yeah, just as a reminder, our endorsement recommendation vote will be taking place at our PAC meeting on Tuesday on the 11th. And the final endorsement will take place at general membership meeting on the 18th. Of course, there's no expectation for your approximate attendance at those meetings, but if you're interested, you can always attend or look at our Facebook page for more meeting details. And the vote results typically tend to take about 48 hours after those meetings, but they'll be posted on the website. NoClub.org/endorsements. But
Awesome.
yeah, thank you again for
Well,
participating.
thank you all so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I loved reading through the platform for transit. I agreed with like the vast majority of it. So I think from a values perspective, I think that I am very in line with where milk is as well. And I think this is often the case. There are very few things I actually disagree with, and much of the time it just winds up coming around process and immediate practicability. I would love if you all would consider endorsing me in my campaign for BART. If you're not willing to do a sole endorsement or endorsement number one, I would love if you would consider doing a dual endorsement in this race. I hope that we can find some common ground. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ready to say that? Eva?
Okay, I'm gonna turn. And then I think we're good to go. You want the video on?
Yes.
Yes. There's this. Okay, I think everybody, yeah, there was great. Awesome. Here I am.
We'll clarify some of the questions before we go. So I know that we have our regular interview. At what point are we asking, or other people asking questions?
It's on Stack.
Is it status?
Just put a great question. I want to clarify. So typically we have like an opener that we'll ask, and because I tell anyone who asks me what question we're gonna ask, and I always like edit all of this because it's what we ask all the candidates. Just while you're writing. After we get through that, I think we probably should try to move to Stack.
Okay, just one question and stack.
Yeah.
All right.
And then if, actually, I think before I said that whoever is conducting the interview gets to ask their question. And then we'll move to Stack. And I think those of us like on the PAC team do have some questions set aside in case there are any questions. But after maybe the first couple of questions, we should open next. Yeah, thanks for the question. All right, so starting at 1:35, we are 14 minutes. Let's start it off.
So I'm Dennis, I am on the club hack team. And as you heard us say before, kind of our spiel, just as a reminder, this interview will be recorded and posted on the website. And for those who can't make it today. And thank you for participating in the endorsement process. I believe that you have a copy of our questionnaire. So if you send that over, we can post it onto our website. And the interview will last about 10 minutes. Please try to keep your responses. Keep your responses to a minute or less, just in order to maximize the number of time we have. And so if you wouldn't mind, just please introduce yourself, the role that you are running for, and also your backgrounds.
I am Keith Friedman. I'm running for mayor, he, him.
And so the next question, why are you running and why are you running now?
I'm running now because I'm getting to the end of my career. I've been in San Francisco for 28 years. I've run a business small business here for 8 years. I've been co-chair of a Democratic club for most of 8 years. I want to retire at some point, and I'd like to retire in a place where I can walk down the streets without having to clean my shoes at the end of the day. So I think now's the time to do it. Otherwise, I think a lot of people might end up leaving San Francisco. It's such a great place. We need to keep all these wonderful people here. So we need to improve the city for all of us.
And why do you seek endorsement from the Harvey Milk LGBTQ Democratic Club? And what do you assess as the role of the Milk Club in San Francisco politics?
Well, I'm seeking endorsements from all the Democratic clubs. So not that you're not special, but I'm the only LGBTQ candidate running. The Milk Club has been one of our voices in the Democratic Club for our community for many years, and it's a powerful, important voice. And I hope I'll earn your voice.
And as a candidate for mayor, what are your top 3 priorities? And just tell them why.
Homelessness, the economy, with primarily tourism, and I suppose I'll say wages, but I'll get to that probably later in the interview.
Okay.
Sure. And is someone watching Zoom or something?
How much?
So you mentioned those 3 top priorities. What are 1 or 2 things that you feel like you could do as mayor to achieve what you want to with those priorities? So just like starting with first, I think is homelessness.
Homelessness, yeah.
So what are 1 or 2 things you feel like could be done to address that issue, and maybe you just go down to 3 and talk about that for a little bit?
So most of the problems in San Francisco are all stemming from our homeless problem, and how it's the affects of homelessness is what affects the rest of the problems in San Francisco. So we're losing businesses, we're losing tourism because the way the city presents to the world, and that presentation is mostly affected by having unhoused people on the street and all of the things that happen when you're unhoused. You don't have a bathroom to use, so you use the streets. You don't have, you don't have money for food, so you steal things. And so if we can solve that problem, almost every other problem the city has gets a lot easier to solve. We'll get tourism back. We can convince businesses to come back. Crime will go down. So what I'm calling the Rising Tide Initiative is a plan I'm working on getting it vetted. So I'm not quite ready to share all the details yet. But I believe by the end of the first year as mayor, we can have 0 unhoused people. It's not a solution to the homeless people, but we can have a place for everybody in San Francisco who's looking for a place to sleep. We'll have a place to sleep that's one that they'll want to sleep in. So I'm going over a minute, but that's one of the biggest problems we have with how we solve homelessness, is that we think that once we give someone a place to sleep, that's the end of the work. That's actually the beginning, because they need counseling, education, rehabilitation for drug rehabilitation, physical rehabilitation. There's a lot of work that only starts when you get someone off the street. And much of that work you can't even do while they're on the street. You can try, but it's putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound.
You and your hand up.
Yeah, let's go deeper into that. So, Band-Aid on a gaping wound. Where does housing homeless people fit now?
Well, when you house people, they have a place to sleep that works better for the human body. Sleeping outside on the street is not a healthy situation to be in.
Forgive me, the question I'm trying to ask, there's a difference between housing, permanent housing and shelter.
Correct.
So what is the proposal that you're making?
I'm working on the exact execution of it, but we have a lot of land in San Francisco that we can put places on. We have other resources that we have available to us.
Places such as,
Candlestick Point is basically
sorry,
empty.
are you talking about shelters? Or are you talking?
No,
about
I'm talking about housing that people want to live in. People don't want to live in shelters.
Yeah, okay.
I'm talking about a place with a kitchen, a
Mhm.
bathroom, some place where you can actually be at home and build yourself a life.
Okay.
I think one of the problems we have here is that we think that shelters are a solution to homelessness, and it's not a home. It's just a bed to sleep in.
Yeah, that's an important clarification. So you think you can do that in a year?
Yeah.
How so?
I'll release the plan in August, and I don't mean to be evasive, but there's a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross, but and we have the money to do it, but some of it may come in the form of things like temporary housing, like container homes, small, micro homes, something that's faster and cheaper to build, or we can buy ready-built things, and we just need to find a place to put them. There's a lot of temporary housing that we can buy or borrow. What I want to avoid though is taking money out of the affordable housing budget. So some of the proposals we have for temporary housing are going to cost money that's going to eat into our funding for building long-term permanent affordable housing. So I want to try to avoid some of that. I'm also going to look to nonprofits to pay for it. So if we can build a good nonprofit organization around this solution, then we can get it paid for by contributions from our billionaire businesses.
So I don't think you had a chance to look at or answer the questionnaire, but one of the things that we've asked folks in the past is how they work across lines with people that they don't get along with. And the mayor's office is one in particular where you've got to kind of work with folks who may be in conflict with what you're trying to do. So can you tell me about a few examples in your career and in your work life that you've had to do this and how you've been successful?
Most of my career has been in technology consulting, and I've been brought into companies to either build a solution or fix a problem that they're having. And almost all of those stem from people working within a company that have differing viewpoints on things. So as the outsider, one of my responsibility has almost always been trying to figure out where people agree on things and start there and figure out what solution is going to work better for people. Sometimes I have a solution I presented, but more often it ends up being a collaborative solution that everybody can buy into because they feel at least they've been heard. And I think in San Francisco, as a citizen and a voter, I find it very frustrating the way our government works here because we seem to focus only on what's different and what's the same. We're all the whole city government are Democrats. We have more in common than we have.
Sure. Can you give me a specific example of when you've done that and what it's looked like and what the end result was?
I don't have a political example, but I have business examples because I do that a lot. One of my customers was a financial services company, and they had their VP of technology had a certain kind of methodology for how to implement things, and the salespeople were fairly frustrated because they didn't think that they were getting their features done the way they wanted to, because it was mostly just they disagreed on who should have the voice there. So I just had them all in the room and said, what's the goal here? do we want to, and it's important, the city has the same kind of issues to deal with. So do you focus on features that are bringing in money from customers? Do you focus on things that are going to bring stability or make things faster and easier to implement down the road? So you just get the right people in the room and you talk about it. A solution that works. In that particular case, we ended up staying off some of the customer requests in exchange for making an infrastructure that would end up being faster to develop things on. So there's a technological solution. I think the city needs technological solutions to solve its problems.
And well, unfortunately, we've run out of time.
Let's do 2 moments. Sorry, we just started.
Okay.
I'm happy to come to the meeting on the 18th and make myself available if anyone wants to get clarity.
I don't see anything.
Oh, that's fine. Unless you have a.
You feel that about the same thing forever, so.
Well, okay, I was gonna ask you how he's engaged with the LGBTQ community, just generally. If you feel like we should ask a different question, go for it.
No, go for it.
Okay, so how have you engaged with the LGBTQ community?
Well, I am LGBTQ, so I'm engaged with the community as often as I can. I was one of the early investors in Oasis nightclub, and I felt that was an important thing for our community. And Jeff Benjamin, one of the co-founders, is a good friend. So he asked for some help, and I was very happy to do it. And I live in the Castro, so I participate. I'm a member of the Castro Merchants, who advocates for our community quite often. As co-chair of the Home Sharers Democratic Club, many of our home sharers are LGBTQ, and one of the nice things that we get to do for people is we have people coming in from all over the world, and we get to engage in conversation with them about our values in our community. And for many of those people, I was able to direct them to their first ever drag show. And they all came back just thinking it's the greatest thing in the world.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are open to public comment.
Okay.
Definitely cool.
I'll get you the questionnaire tomorrow, and I'll plan to come to the meeting on the 18th, just in case anyone has
Sounds good. I think we heard a little bit at the end of Joe's interview, just about like, what to expect.
Yeah.
Next. Is it helpful if we just kind of read through that one more time?
No, I've got it.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay,
All right, thank you all.
okay, awesome. Thank you so much. You're welcome. Do we have, I think it's me.
I don't see anything.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, take care.
Rajesh.
Actually. It says speaker view. So just a quick moment of troubleshooting. We're on speaker view on the Zoom, but it's showing Tab. Who I think is, Tab, do you want to go on mute and see if that helps?
Sure.
There we go. Okay. Is it switching back? Okay, there we go. Okay, cool. Thank you, Tab. Sorry about that. All right, let's get started.
Sure, yeah. Awesome. Well, hi, my name is Joshua Ochoa. I serve as a PAC officer at the Milk Club. I use some pronouns, and just as a reminder, this interview is being recorded and will be posted to our website for those who couldn't make it today. Thank you for participating in our process and participating in questionnaire. The interview will last about 15 minutes, and please try and keep your responses just to a minute or less, so we can ask as many questions as we can. And just to start us off, can you please introduce yourself, the role you're running for, and your companies?
Great. Supervisor Asha Safai running for mayor, he, him.
Awesome. Next question we have is, why are you running and why now?
So our city, it feels as though our city is, by many people, is a time of crisis. We have so many different aspects of our city that need support, affordability, small businesses, economic inequality. I mean, we have a city that has 50 billionaires with only a population of 800,000. We're the third highest concentration of billionaires in the United States. And yet we still have a tremendous number of people that are low income, but those in the middle, working families, middle-class families are being squeezed out. And that's the voice that I have represented for the last 7.5 years. And even before that, when I worked with organized labor for almost a decade. So we need to make sure that San Francisco remains a city for all San Franciscans and that we all can live, thrive, and prosper here. San Francisco has always been a city that's welcoming to all different types of immigrants in the largest form of the word. And we need to continue to be that way. We need to be a refuge, and we need to be a place that people can come to, feel welcome and embraced and prosper. And that's why I'm running, because I feel like it's getting off track.
Thank you. Your next question is, why do you seek the endorsement from our Milk LGBTQ Democratic Club, and how do you assess the role of the Milk Club in San Francisco politics?
I think it's important to have a diversity. I think it's important to have a diversity. What happened?
Never mind. Go ahead.
Okay,
It's not about you.
I think it's important to have a diversity of opinions represented. I think the Milk Club does a really good job of representing a broad range of opinions. And we need to have that better reflected. San Francisco is really politically divided right now, and yet we're not doing a good job of bringing all the disparate groups together. It's another reason why I'm running for mayor, because I have a track record of doing that work over the last 24 plus years in public service in San Francisco. So yes, I think the Milk Club's important, and I think they play an important role of providing that diversity of opinions.
Just quick check, any stat questions?
Okay, so our question here can be a little black and white, like yes, no, whatever, doesn't really give you a great chance to explain some of your positions. I think you mentioned that you opposed the repeal of the LSAC in the yes, no section. I just wanted to see if you wanted to kind of elaborate on that position.
Oppose the repeal of LSAC? I think that might have been a mistake.
Got it, might have been reversed.
Yeah.
Questions, just to clarify.
Yeah,
So-
where does it say that? It should have been no. I mean, I've actually advocated for the repeal of the LSAC.
Great. Yeah, that's probably asked these questions.
It's in the tail end, it's the yes
Yes,
and
no
no
section.
section.
Yeah, there's a good-
Oh, I thought maybe they read it as, do you support the repeal of the LSAcs?
You're not the only one, so don't worry. We had other
Do
folks.
you not,
who
maybe,
heard that.
maybe repealing.
Yeah, it's probably just a confusing question.
Yeah, but it's important that we get that.
That's what that says. Do you support the repeal of LSAC? And he said yes.
Oh, so I do support the repeal.
So it's our fault. Raising a fair question, are we?
Where is it anyway?
Under tenants, housing and homelessness, it's about the fifth one down.
Okay, I was
Okay.
like, no, I got it. There we go. Do you support the repeal of, oh yeah, do you support the, yes, okay, yes, okay, I got it right. I was like,
Okay, bye.
sorry,
Okay.
now that we got that
redeem
clarified.
myself.
No, no,
Anyway,
now that we got that all cleared up, we want to make sure that it's like, what the hell?
So I think it might have been left blank or no position for the abolition of ICE. Just wanted to see if you wanted to elaborate.
Yeah, so I worked at the janitors union for almost a decade. I was there when Obama did E-Verify. We had 2,500 members lose their job in one day that could not produce a social security number. Immigrations, customs also plays a role of just kind of entering and screening people that come into the country. So there's a role to play for our immigration department. But in terms of, I think the question's more about, do you want an agency that's going to go after in a very aggressive way immigrants and try to be the enforcement agency to deport undocumented immigrants without coming up with a real policy to transition people into this country? And so it's not a yes, no for me. I mean, like, you have to have people that are screening people that come into our country, and that's part of their job. But the part of their job, I think, that many people have a real problem with is this aggressive persecution of immigrants that are in the United States, and I don't support that.
Thank you.
The next question.
As the only immigrant in this race myself for mayor.
Thank you. Next question we have is, you stated that you have no positions on the supervisor races for districts 5, 7, and 9. As mayor, you'll need to work with the board of supervisors, as you well know, to get nearly anything accomplished. Are you planning on endorsing in those races? And if so,
So I usually wait until people ask me for their endorsement, and that has not happened in those cases.
Heads up, folks.
Yeah. I will say, again, I kind of go back to a lot of my legislative accomplishments, whether it was the Student Success Fund, working with Hillary and Supervisor Melgar. I came in and negotiated there at the end, a final settlement, and we got an 11-0 vote at the board. Same thing with bringing in mandatory audits for the Department of Homeless Supportive Housing. That was a ballot measure that I ran that ended up being Prop C, was like 18 months ago. Again, that was a unanimous vote. Both cases, the mayor did not support. So the fact that I will then become mayor and have relationships and a track record of working with the board, I feel really confident that that has been the signature of my career, bringing people together to find, good compromise, not just compromise for compromise sakes, but good compromise. And if you look at the Student Success Fund, that was it. You had a proposal to put up to, $60 million a year aside for our public schools. But the Public Employees Union didn't feel like they had been consulted and were at the table and were really resistant to it at the end. And because of my work with organized labor, I was able to get everyone to the table, school district, United Educators, public employees, Local 21, 1021, members of the board. And we got in a room just like this and said, we're not going to leave until we get a deal done. And we did. And we came up with some good ideas on when the economy goes down, how the number would go down. So that is, I feel very confident that I have the ability to work with a broad spectrum of members of the board. So I feel good about that. But on the other ones, if people don't ask me for their endorsement, I'm like, we can sit down and talk for sure.
Yeah,
Oh, but you know what? I just want to be clear. I'm not going to endorse in District 7. I'm not going to do that. In 5 and 9, I'm open to sit down for sure.
yes. I wanted to, we asked you a question about what will you do to end homelessness in your jurisdiction. You have a 5-point plan. I'd actually like us to talk to you about that for another 45 minutes.
Yeah.
We don't have that.
And by the way, you all are the first ones to see it because we're going to be releasing it this week. It's embargoed with the press. So, I understand that this is, but you all were the first ones to see that in writing.
I have a lot of issues with it.
Okay.
Primarily, well, not primarily, but like the first thing being just like the base of it, right? I have a 5-point plan to end street homelessness by the end of the first term. Let's just talk about that. We asked you about ending street homelessness or ending homelessness, and you said I have a plan to end street homelessness. I see that is an answer to a different question. Do you see the difference?
Of course. Of
So what
course.
would you say about that?
So the reason I focused on street homelessness is because I have a realistic approach when it comes to talking about homelessness overall. And the federal government 40 plus years ago stopped investing in public housing and subsidized housing. And because of that, you can draw, if you graph it out, the amount of subsidy going down from the federal government and the amount of homelessness going up. So it's a stark, that is homelessness overall. We have done, if you look at our Department of Homeless Supportive Housing, at over $700 million budget, the vast majority of that money goes to keeping people housed that were formerly homeless. So what I was trying to get at was a subset of that and those that are just suffering on our streets. So that's what I chose to talk about. It wasn't as a way to ignore the overall issue, because I think that's the most visible in people's face. But when you take a step back and look at the number of people living in vehicles, which has exploded, something that I've worked on since I've been in office. It was the first one to do a safe parking in my district. That's why it's a piece of my plan. I wanted to zero in on that aspect of homelessness.
The city itself has come up with a plan to end homelessness. To my surprise, actually, in the Place for All report, They said that we could end homelessness in 3 years with, initially it was $1.5 billion, and then it's reduced to $900,000 over the course of 3 years, in addition to our current budget. To me, that seems doable. It seems difficult, but doable, on some kind of, lobbying to the feds or something, right? Are you interested in addressing, like, ending homelessness?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I go, so what you talked about saying federal support, one of the ways in which we were better at, and that's why we had a lower percentage of homeless, was when, if we could expand the number of Section 8 vouchers, for example, there's a lot of people there. There's actually voucher subsidy support sitting on the table. Something that Dean Preston and I put forward. Dean put it forward, I co-sponsored with him. It's, and I don't want to get so much into the weeds, but I'll just say really quickly, if you had 6,000 public housing units and today you only have 4,000, you can apply to the federal government to get an additional 2,000 vouchers with that delta. We have that delta, we haven't applied for it. So that would be an aggressive way with federal government support to go after the larger issue of homelessness. We have to expand the amount of shelter to get people off the streets, but we also have to have transitional housing and subsidy support outside of, like, rapid rehousing, outside of Section 8 support. So there's this entire continuum that I can tell you're very well versed on. And I'm absolutely committed to ending homelessness, permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, Section 8 voucher, expanding the amount of public housing or government supported housing or social housing.
Social housing. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So
I'm sorry.
15, 20 seconds, then we have one more last question.
I believe in it. I think it's another way of, it's public, it's government-backed housing. I was in Amsterdam last summer. I saw the great impact that it has on a city, that you can stabilize a housing market. You can come in, you can buy buildings. We're doing it in some ways in our Department of Homelessness. We bought 17 buildings. We converted them into all different forms of addressing homelessness and transitional housing. We need to do more of that, and more of our Prop I needs to be dedicated to that.
My background is in HR, so I'm asking a question about your budget. You said that you have a lot of visible contracts and roles that are left unfilled. Can you talk a little bit about how you plan to fill those roles in those contracts?
Well, so we started that process a little, I mentioned a little bit on the mandatory audits for the Department of Homeless Supportive Housing. When we passed that measure, sorry, I'll stop moving around. I can't help it. When we passed that measure, part of it was to audit the nonprofits that serve that department. We have over 240, right, that do homeless services in the city. We started to see not just the ones where the FBI had to be called in because they were selling vouchers to friends and family, or they were submitting invoices for work that wasn't done, but we're trying to get some performance-based audits and budgetary audits as well. Someone that, like Chris, his organization might be really good at screening people and getting them housed. Your organization might not. So we want to do more work with Chris's organization, and that's part of what the audits are finding out. So some of the groups we're trying to weed out are not doing as good a work in the city that they could be done. That's just one small example. When you think about the Department of Public Health, and Edward knows, that they're every year, they propose a budget, and about halfway through, they come back and say, oh, can we take this 40 million? Can we take this 60 million and transfer it over here? It's a lot of waste in that one department that needs to be fully audited. But an example of the contracts are the contracted nurses. So instead of hiring the full-time permanent nurses, they have contract nurses, and they pay a lot more money for those contracts. DPW, PUC, MTA, they have a lot of contractors, large professional services, large management, large contracts that go to private corporations, companies, that you could better serve with in-house services. So we have 4,500 funded, unfilled positions. Everyone focuses on the police department. It's about 300 or 400 funded, unfilled. but we have nurses, 911 call operators, sheriffs, paramedics. Our entire public safety net is understaffed. We have the money, they just shift it into overtime. So there's a lot of waste going on and mismanagement. It's also another reason why I'm running, because I have 24 years of experience that I bring to the table to this job. Working under 2 mayors, being a deputy department head myself, community development, working in public works, and now 3 years on the budget committee, 1 year as president of the retirement fund, and then working with organized labor. Like I bring 24 years of experience to this job. So I know where the money is and I know where it's being wasted. And a lot of it is in contracting.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we are out of time.
Yes, for both, we had, what if we asked the next interview we have, so.
Okay,
we have to review.
so by the end, yes, I think I'm sure you know the word. A reminder that our endorsement recommendation will take place at our PAC meeting on the 11th, which is Tuesday, and the final endorsement vote will take place at the general membership meeting on the 18th, which is a week from next Tuesday. There's no expectation for you or your staff's attendance at those meetings, but if you're interested, you could look at the Facebook page for meeting details, and vote results should be posted about 48 hours after those meetings on our website at milkclub.org/endorsements. Yeah, thank you so much for participating.
Thank you. Thanks for your time today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
I'm glad we clarified the LSI.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
You're like, you're uninvited. I feel like that's a pretty big, basic litmus test question. Thanks, everyone. What?
Was a joke.
Say something.
Test, mic test, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nice habit.
Okay. All right, kids. So 2:21, you'll have your full 15 minutes, don't worry. I just wanted to call out that 1 minute's fine. So. Hello, my name is Reed Fox, Ethan. I am currently the VP of Planning and Development. Just a reminder that this interview is being recorded and won't be posted to our website for those who could meet today. Thank you for participating in our endorsement process, and thank you so much for submitting the name and also questionnaire. We appreciate that. This interview will last 15 minutes. Please try to keep your responses to a minute or less in order to maximize the number of questions that can be asked. And please introduce yourself. Your name, the role you're running for, and your.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor to be here with the Milk Club, which is my political home. My name is Edward Wright, pronouns he, him, his, and I am here to recruit you to the fight for BART's future, which is all of our future. Every single day, BART moves hundreds of thousands of people and connects them to jobs, to community, and culture. Every single day, BART keeps hundreds of thousands of cars off of our roads and their carbon emissions out of our atmosphere. And BART is essential to being able to achieve our city's goals on housing, economic recovery, climate, or social equity. And all of that is at stake in this race. Because since the pandemic, BART has lost over half of its ridership, and it's facing a fiscal cliff in just a few short years that could change or destroy the system as we know it. And that means we need to be able to pass a regional funding measure in 2026 to fund the system that we have. I'm running because I don't think it's good enough to give people faith that we can keep the system we have, that we need to. I think we need to be able to give people hope that we'll be able to build and win the system that we deserve. I think that's also how we'll build the political support that we need to win a funding measure in 2026. So when I'm elected, I will focus on activating BART stations and plazas with retail and events in partnership with community serving organizations. I'll focus on transforming how BART fares are priced and packaged in order to increase access to transit, increase revenue for the system, and better meet how travel patterns and demands have shifted since the pandemic.
And I'll focus on improving how BART ambassadors coordinate with the city to connect people in need with services. BART's facing a lot of big challenges. I'm confident that together we can overcome those challenges because we've done it so many times before together. I'm really proud of my record. I have written and passed many local laws, including laws expanding paid leave and job security for hundreds of thousands of essential workers, creating the strongest dark money disclosure law in the nation, tripling the impact of our local public financing program, establishing the first ever LGBTQ cultural district in Oakland, abolishing minimum parking requirements in local new housing developments, and many, many more. I'm also proud of my work on the city budget, securing critical funding for climate action, for HIV services for the trans community, in partnership with the Mill Club and many other organizations. So because of my track record, I have the support of NUHW, of AFT 2121, of over 25 elected officials, including everyone that this club has endorsed so far this cycle. And I believe that public transit is a public good and mobility is a human right. And I would be so honored to earn this club's endorsement and be your voice on our board.
Great, thank you so much. And that kind of gets to the next thing that I was gonna ask about why you're running. You did a great job answering that. You had some like timeliness aspects to your answer there. Is there anything else you wanted to say about like why you're running? Or maybe you could look at it as why are you the right candidate for the current moment?
Well, I'm the only candidate in the race that actually has experience with public transit, public policy, public budgets, political organizing, which I view as the primary functions of the role that I'm running for. And I think right now, given the existential crisis that BART is facing on funding, on public trust, on ridership, we can't gamble this race or treat it as a vanity campaign or a political stepping stone. We need someone who has the experience in this role to do the job that needs to be done. That's why I decided to run and why I decided to run now.
Awesome. Any questions from?
Yeah, so in recent years, as I'm sure you know, we've seen BART begin developing property into housing. What would you do as a BART director to encourage the development, especially of affordable housing on or near BART?
Great question. I mean, my view is that public lands near public transit is exactly where we should be maximizing both density and affordable housing. And the lens that I judge any project by is how it's maximizing benefits for the public, especially when it's using public resources like BART property. So what I look at in a project is how can we maximize the amount of people that we can house who are otherwise priced out of the market. That does not always mean a 100% affordable project. Sometimes you can end up with more affordable housing at a lower percentage by just having more units overall to help subsidize the affordable units. That's what I would look for and advocate for and support in future developments on BART property.
Kind of a related note, and maybe as it just deals with homelessness specifically, you did answer the question there about you know, what you would do in your role to address homelessness. And thank you for maybe thinking outside the box a little bit, because I know this role isn't maybe directly associated with that. But beyond housing specifically, what else maybe could be done in this role to help with homelessness? Maybe that could be fares or accessibility, just like what else maybe is there associated with homelessness?
Yeah, I mean, I think public transit, like our public streets, are dealing with the repercussions of decades of divestment from public services, from public health, from public housing that are exacerbating the crisis of homelessness. I think a lot of what we hear about concerns about like antisocial behavior on BART, about behavioral health issues and people that are using the system, the answer to public health challenges is public health services. BART itself, you know, doesn't provide homeless services, but BART does employ a large ambassador program that I think could do a much better job of connecting people from the system to the services they need and deserve. I expanded that answer a little more in my questionnaire. But right now we have, you know, a constellation of entities in the city. We have, you know, Supervisor Safi, you mentioned, literally hundreds of nonprofits that work on services for people experiencing homelessness. And I think over a dozen different city-funded ambassador programs. And we really need to take more of a case management approach to the extent that we can within HIPAA restrictions, to make sure that as BART ambassadors are connecting with these people, they're also talking to the city programs so that they can better coordinate to bring the services that people need.
Okay, and then we're.
So you stated in your questionnaire that you would accept contributions or endorsement from the Deputy Sheriff's Association, but not the POA.
Yes.
What is the distinction and why?
Well, the POA represents, I said PD. Deputy sheriffs represents the deputy sheriffs. And I mean, for me, the big distinction is that I think Deputy Sheriff's Association in particular has largely been a partner and an ally on criminal justice reform issues, because their members experience the outcomes of mass incarceration firsthand. We see that today in our understaffed and overpopulated jails as a result to what has been a return to the war on drugs. And we've heard the deputy sheriffs loudly and clearly saying that what the city is doing now isn't working. So to the extent that I view them as an important partner in the work of reforming our criminal justice system, I would be happy to have their endorsement.
And where do you see yourself in 10 years?
In San Francisco? I don't know. If you asked me that question 10 years ago, my answer would not have at all reflected what I'm doing now. If I feel like behind that question is how it relates to this race. I have no plans on running for higher office. I'm very committed to BART. I'm very committed to public transit. It's what I do in my day job. I probably should have mentioned that. I am a strategy and communications advisor for Muni, which has twice the ridership of BART, not that it's a competition. But I'm very, very committed to the city. I'm very committed to the progressive movement. I'm very committed to supporting public transit and climate action. And that's what I'll intend to focus on for the rest of my life.
Ted has the same reason.
Oh, excellent, thank you so much. Tab, go for it. I think you just need to take yourself off mute, Tab, and you should be able to hear.
Hi, Edward. As you know, in recent years,
Hi, Tab.
hi there. Transit workers, BART,
Looks like it.
Yeah, of course I can tell he's off mute.
Okay, let me.
can you hear me now?
Let me troubleshoot.
Is the volume down? No, it's up.
There's sound issues with milk? What? No. No. Let's see.
How's that?
Speaker,
Any better?
it's my speaker. Tab, do you want to type it into the chat?
Sure, I can do that.
And what did you suggest? If the audio is not working, you can always. Yeah.
I can type it.
Sorry, Tab. I feel like
Yeah,
we should be able to hear you.
do another question and
I feel like
I'll
we've
type
heard
it
other
in while you're
people.
doing it, okay?
Yeah.
I can see that he's speaking, but we can't hear you, Tab.
Let me see. Hey, Mary, I know you've been super helpful on this so far. Can you maybe speak something just to make sure we can hear folks on Zoom? Oh, we couldn't.
And it's on the device, but is it on Zoom?
Zoom's on the way. Okay. Well,
I'm sure it's a great question, Tab.
Yeah.
I would love to answer.
let's see. I don't know. Tab, could you just like indicate in the chat if you want to type a question, just so we kind of know that's what you're doing?
Yes, right there.
Oh, there we go. We can hear you now.
Not sure what I did.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. Edward, as you know, in recent years, BART employees, the transit workers have not always felt that they've had adequate support from BART leadership in as far as living wage, benefits, and safety. So can you share with us what your vision is to make sure there's adequate attention and budget set aside for the employees of BART?
Thank you for that question. It is super important. And, I think especially as BART's facing financial challenges, I want to be really clear that we cannot balance BART's budget on the backs of its workers or its riders. And I would not support any effort to do so or to pursue some kind of austerity agenda. Right now, BART unions are seeking a 2-year extension on their existing contract with cost of living adjustments. I would, if I were on the board right now, I would be advocating for looking at the wage increases that were secured among San Francisco public sector unions as a baseline to negotiate up from. And those increases were 13% over 3 years. I believe that would work out based on how the splits were included in those contracts to 7.5% over 2 years. Again, I think that should be the floor, and you know, could be supportive of going higher than that. I also think it's critical that those contract extensions get secured as soon as possible, so that BART, along with its labor partners, can move forward with the unified voice in advocating for securing new funding in 2026. And then once I'm on the board, the next contract vote will be a few years down the road, but will also be super critical. One thing that I can tell you right now, I would like to see changed in BART's contract is more flexibility for remote work for its office workforce. I think it's a little silly that they're not really allowed to do that when most other public agencies do allow for it. And I think it would help make it a better working environment for its workers, and also more competitive for bringing folks into the workforce.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Okay. You've had your 15 minutes. I know it's gone by really quickly. Sorry for a little snack through there. Thank you. Thank you.
I would love your endorsement. You didn't ask me what the club means to me.
Okay.
I heard you ask Asha that. I was looking forward to it.
Edward was president of our club, so yeah, I feel like that's a little bit of a thorough question there. We are at time, unfortunately. I think you might have heard us mention to Asha like the next steps. Happy to
I'm
review
familiar
that.
with the next steps, yeah.
He was also the fact chair at one point. So cool. Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you all so much. It was a little surreal to be on this side of the interview table, and I know how much work goes into this process. I'm really grateful to you all for it, and to the voice of this club and our movement and our city and our community. And I meant what I said. I want to be a voice for this club in public office. So I would really appreciate your consideration. And if anyone wants a window sign, we have some here.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, keep it on the sound for a second. So for folks on Zoom, folks in the room, we do have a 10-minute break before Aaron Peskin comes by. And then we have Peskin, and then Cerise Hughes for mayor, and then London Breed for mayor. And we're done.
No, Daniel, where are you?
What's
You
that?
couldn't make it to the. Oh.
I invited him, Lori, or you said you could be there Tuesday, or he's.
I mean, I'll be there. But I think they'll be
Lori?
Yeah.
I invited him, I haven't heard back yet, this morning, so, yeah,
Okay,
but no, you're good, you're good. Bye, Susan. Were you asking me a question?
I think I asked it.
You didn't answer it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay, we can go on, we can turn off, let me turn off. Were we not recording for the first part of, Asha's?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, it's my fault. I thought I turned it back on.
No,